Welcome to A Quiet Places for Tired Minds, a series of calm reflections for overwhelmed humans living in a noisy world. Today, I'd like to share something that almost escaped my attention. It wasn't a spectacular sunset or a dramatic view. The sky was gray. The sea was restless. The wind moved gently through the tall grass. It was one of those ordinary afternoons that many people might have called uneventful. I remember climbing the path away from the bay. The sea slowly disappeared behind the hillside. Soon, I couldn't see it anymore. Only long grasses swaying quietly in the wind. So I sat down. Not because there was anything remarkable to capture, but because something about that place asked me to stay a little longer. As I sat there, I realized something curious. Also, I could no longer see the sea. I could still hear it. Its rhythm, its presence hadn't disappeared. It was simply beyond my sight. And it made me wonder how many of the most important things in our lives are like that. Always present, quietly shaping us, even when we cannot immediately see them. We live in a world that naturally draws our attention to what is loud. Breaking news, busy schedules, big achievements, growing numbers, the next exciting thing. It's easy to believe that if something doesn't attract attention, it must not be very important. Nature tells a different story. The wind doesn't ask us to notice it, yet we see it touch in every moving blade of grass. The tide never announces its arrival, yet over time it reshapes entire coastlines. Roots grow silently beneath the earth long before anyone admires the tree. Perhaps life has always been whispering what the world prefers to shout, that the quiet things are often doing the deepest work. Maybe that's why some conversations stay with us for years, while hundreds of louder moments quietly disappear. Maybe that's why a single act of kindness can change someone's life without anyone else knowing. Maybe that's why the people who help us grow the most are not always the ones who speak the loudest, but the ones who truly listen. Sitting there, surrounded by nothing more than gray skies, moving grass, and the distant sound of waves, I didn't feel like as tough anything extraordinary was happening. And perhaps that was the extraordinary part. Because maybe we spend so much time looking to spectacular moments that we've almost forgotten how quietly life changes us. As I sat there, listening to wind move through the long grass, I noticed something else. The grasses never seemed to compete with one another. Some stood tall, others bent almost to the ground. Some moved wildly with the wind, others barely moved at all. Yet together, they created something beautiful. It made me wonder, when did we begin believing that we all had to stand the same way, grow the same way, or bloom all at the same time? Perhaps one of the quietest burdens we carry is the feeling that we should somehow be further ahead, more confident, more successful, more certain, more than we are today. Yet nature never appears to carry that burden. The grass doesn't apologize for bending it in the wind. The clouds don't apologize for covering the sun. Even the sea doesn't apologize for being restless. Everything simply allows itself to be what today asks of it. And maybe that's something we've forgotten. We often judge ourselves for the very things that make us human. The days we felt tired, the moments we need pause, the seasons when life feels uncertain. A stuffed gentleness were somehow a weakness. But sitting there, I couldn't help thinking, the grass survives the strongest wind, not because it refuses to bend, but because it knows how. Perhaps there is a quiet wisdom in that. Not everything strong stands rigid. Some of the strongest things in nature are beautifully flexible. I wonder how many times we've mistaken softness for fragility, when in reality, softness often asks for the greater courage. It takes courage to listen instead of interrupting, to forgive instead of holding on, to rest when the world applauds exhaustion, to choose kindness even when nobody notices. The world often celebrates the loudest voice, the biggest achievements, the busiest lives, but rarely does it stop to celebrate the quiet person who made someone feel safe, the friend who simply stayed, the stranger who offered a smile, the parent who kept showing up, the teacher who believed in someone before they believed in themselves. Those moments may never appear in the headlines, yet they quietly change lives. Maybe that's why the things we remember most are rarely the loudest. They are often the quiet conversations, the gentle encouragement, the hand that reached for ours, the peaceful walk, the ordinary afternoon that somehow become unforgettable. As the wind continued moving through the grass, it occurred to me that perhaps the world hasn't become noisier because quiet things disappeared. Perhaps we simply forgotten how to notice them. And maybe that's where peace begins, not by searching for a different life, but by learning to hear what has been softly speaking to us all along. As the afternoon unfolded, I found myself thinking about the people I met through my life. Curiously, the ones who changed me the most were rarely the loudest. They weren't always the ones with the biggest personalities or the most impressive stories. Often, they were simply the people who made me feel seen. A teacher who believed in someone before they believed in themselves. A friend who listened without trying to fix everything. A stranger whose kindness arrived on exactly the day it was needed. None of those moments made the news, yet somehow they become part of who we are. Perhaps that's the nature of quiet things. They don't ask for attention, they ask for presence. The same is true in nature. No one watches the roots beneath the tree, yet they quietly hold everything above the ground. No one noticed the time changing, minute by minute. Yet, over time, it reshapes entire coastlines. No one hears. A flower growing, yet one morning, there it is, blooming. It makes me wonder how much of our own growth has happened in exactly the same way. Not all at once, not with applause, not because on one extraordinary day changed everything, but because one countless ordinary days that gently shaped us without us even realizing. Maybe healing is like that. Perhaps confidence is too. Trust, forgiveness, hope. None of them usually arrive all at once. They return quietly, almost unnoticed, until one day you find yourself smiling at something that once made you cry, speaking kindly to yourself where you once heard only criticism, walking forward where once you couldn't imagine taking another step. And maybe that's why we so often underestimate today. Because today looks ordinary. It doesn't know that it's quietly becoming a memory. It doesn't realize that years from now, it might be one of the days that changed everything. The world encourages us to chase extraordinary moments, but perhaps a meaningful life is built from ordinary ones. One conversation, one walk, one sunrise, one cup of tea, one quiet decision to keep going. Sitting there, wrapping in the sound of the wind, I realized it. I wasn't remembering the most exciting days of my life. I was remembering the quiet ones, the days I felt understood, the afternoons that asked nothing of me, the peaceful places where I slowly become more myself. Perhaps the quiet things most matter, because long after the noise has faded, they're the ones that stay with us. Eventually, it was time to stand up. The path was still waiting. The sea was still beyond the hillside. The wind still carried its quiet song through the grass. Nothing around me had changed, yet somehow I had. Perhaps that's the gift of quiet places. But they don't always change our circumstances. Sometimes they simply change the way we return to them. As I walked back, I found myself thinking about tomorrow. Not with worry, not with a list of everything that still needs to be done, but with a quiet curiosity. Because perhaps tomorrow doesn't need a different version of me. Perhaps it simply needs the one who has remembered how to notice. Life will still be busy. There will still be difficult conversations, unexpected changes, emails to answer, people to care for. The ordinary rhythm of being human. This reflection isn't asking us to escape any of that. It's simply inviting us not to overlook the quiet beauty woven through it. Because maybe a meaningful life isn't built from extraordinary days. Maybe it's built from the way we meet ordinary ones. The way we listen, the way we speak, the way we forgive, the way we notice the sky even when it's gray, the way we choose kindness when no one is watching, the way we sit for a few peaceful moments and allow ourselves to simply be. Perhaps these are the moments that quietly become alive. Before I reached the top of the path, I turned it around one last time. I still couldn't see the sea, but I could hear it. Steady, faithful, unchanged. And it reminded me that not everything important needs to be visible to be real. Maybe hope is like that. Maybe healing is too. Maybe love quietly continues even through seasons when we struggle to see it. So if today has felt ordinary or slow or unnoticed, I hope you'll remember the long grass, the grey sky, and the sea beyond the hill. Because sometimes the quiet moments becomes the ones we carry with us the longest. Not everything that matters asks us to be noticed, but perhaps everything that truly changes us begins by being noticed. Thank you for spending this quiet time with me. Until next time, take gentle care of your mind